Okay, guys. Welcome to today's class. We going to kind of be fast today. And I believe you guys have actually gone through last class, the previous class, because the previous class we're going to usher us into what we have for today. So we're able to talk more on flex. So one thing that I would say advise everybody is that don't put your mind on trying to know everything at first. People that try that when starting programming, they actually feel like, okay, let's pray before we start. Think we, for some couple of times now, we have actually forgotten that. In Jesus' name, our righteous Father, we thank you for your love, for your kindness, and you have helped us to come to this level. You have helped us to end one of the months in the 6 months. We are going to complete the second month. Your name be highly exalted as we continue with us. Give us your grace, your zeal, your strength in the name of Jesus. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So we are going to dwell much on some things today. So looking at what we have done, thank you, Angel Shoma, for the comment. I seriously appreciate your comment. So, looking at what we did in the last class, I want to advise try and use what we did in the last class and grow. Okay. What we are going to be doing today is going to be different from what you know. We are going to be building using what we have learned in last class. I believe as far as you went through last class couple of times and try it yourself, you have gotten some knowledge that is important. And please put in mind, you don't try to get it all before you start programming. Programming is too broad. Programming is too big. Don't try to understand a programming language before you start using it perfectly. You can't get the full understanding. Even people that is why they are always updates. Even some persons that you feel know it, they still make research. Whenever they get where they are stuck, they make research. That's why we have some platform that can help us look for solutions like Stack Overflow. Now we have ChatGPT can help you also. So our advice, what we have done from the first class to today's class that we're going to be doing is actually wonderful. And you don't need to wait. So what we are going to be doing today, we are supposed to go into positioning and other, but we will just do positioning. Saying when we do positioning, we'll go into uh, internal styling and we'll go into external styling. That is how we'll stop and we'll start building. So put in mind, there is something I want you to put in mind. Put serious this in mind. The knowledge you have is enough to keep you going. The knowledge you have, keep that in mind. And I have learned something in a couple of years I've been in programming is that what I've learned is I don't give somebody to solve my problems before I search for it. I always make research my problems before giving somebody to assist me. Now, whenever I try and I don't get it, then I call somebody higher than me to assist me. But before I will call you, I must have tried. And with that alone that I have tried, when you come in, it will not be hard for you to assist me. And it will not be hard for me to understand. But most persons actually wait for spoon feeding. Give me, let me take. So our advice, what we have can keep you going. And the pattern we are using is as we go, we learn more. As we grow, we learn more. That is the pattern we are using in this program. teach you the basic you need to know for starting. Like we have taught you flex now. I think flex is okay for a start. Then we'll teach you positioning and we're going to external internal styling and we're going to external styling where we are going to be doing it for long. So let's start now. So welcome guys, welcome. I actually appreciate you guys. And if you have not been subscribed, if you have not subscribed to our channel, we will always advise you subscribe to our channel. It's at least it will help us. So our advice, if you haven't, so subscribe to our channel and get the best of what we are going to be doing. Tech papers have come to stay. Tell your friends like we have not really entered into CSS. That is why we are still leaving the registration link up. The registration link is still up. You can tell your friends, tell them this is a 6 months life-changing program. Don't exchange it for anything. Sacrifice the 6 months, sacrifice and get the best and give your testimony tomorrow. We are using the pattern that if you go to pay to learn, they will never use for you. I have gone to some programs, I've gone to witness some programs, and at the end of the day, students will complain, I just paid money and I did not learn anything. Because they will spoon fed you. They will spoon feed you. So it will be nice you get this program free of charge and utilize it perfectly. Some persons will say, if you don't pay, you will not learn. My brother, sometimes it's a lie. It's a lie. It just depends on your mindset. So you did not pay for this, but in one way or the other, you are still paying. Your data. Your data is like you are subscribing to go through this program. So it's something. Can put it like at the end of this program, I will not remain the same. I must have gone far. So let's continue. Let me open a project. So guys, so we are still at uh we are still at please excuse me, let me get my water. Sorry. So sorry for that. I just have to get water. So let's continue. So we are still at inline. So let's actually talk about positioning. Let me go live with this. Let's talk about positioning, and that will be where we'll stop for this and we'll continue. So now I want to position the stuff. Now let's see how to position. Okay. Now let me open my paints. Okay. Now I'll okay, let's go through what we understand by positioning. So positioning in its sense helps us how? How does it help us? So it helps us to render our item wherever we want to render it, regardless of the arrangement. So now I'm using this. Now, if you watch the way I go with this, never you get somebody's concept or somebody's idea. Try to get a little part of your own definition inside of it. Now, if you always go with somebody's idea, this is what they define for me in programming, you will not go far. Wow, you will just be doing things you don't understand. Anything you can't explain in your own way, you don't understand it. Anything you can't break down in your own English, in your own way, in the simplest manner, you don't understand it. So even if I'm defining this for you, you still have to get your own understanding. So positioning helps us to arrange our elements regardless of the arrangement. It helps us to position our item regardless of the arrangement, position it and wherever you want it to be, regardless of the arrangement. So now we have so many type of positioning. We have relative positioning, we have absolute, we have sticky, we have static, and we have fixed. So let's go to our W3 school and get the full list. Sorry, you're trying to look for positioning and I've seen it. So you can see we have static, we have relative, we have fixed, absolute, and sticky. Absolute and what? Sticky. Absolute and sticky. You can see this now. Look at what is here as position fixed. And so I think that explains fixed for us. So static. Uh, HTML elements are positioned static by default. You can see the word HTML element. So the normal default way you see your HTML element, that means that proper way is the default, which is statically positioned. Statically positioned. They are what? Statically positioned. Eh, They are what? Statically positioned. So relative now, an element with relative is position relative to its normal position. Is position relative to its normal position, setting the top, right, bottom. So now you can position an element relative to its normal position. Like now, so like when I mean relative now, how will I put it? But in terms of working, you might not be using relative that much. So I'm just thinking the word. That is why I just kept quiet. I'm just thinking the word to use to give you what I mean, what they mean by relative, position relative. Okay. Now I can take, let's take for instance, let me use this diagram so that we understand. Let's take for instance, this is where this is a container. So this container now, I can use this. So this item is placed inside the container, inside this, on this position. This item now is placed on this position. And if I want to place it relative to its position, I can take it top of its position, top of its position. You get me? So this is his normal position. The one down here is his normal position. But now I have taken it top of its normal position. So let's come to that. Let's look at what we are going to talk about. Let's just use hours. So we have this container. Let me position this container up of its normal position, star position relative. So when I put position relative, let's go and look at the item itself. So we can see it now at this point. All of two of them are straight. So let me put top. Uh, minus 50. So if let me see through. Okay, pixel. So you can see now everything inside of it is going down of its normal position. Wait, so this is it. Okay, I am actually putting this here. No, I need to put it here. See, okay, let me just use this one now. So you can see that this content has left this point. Let me remove it. So I think this is preferable to explain this to us. So you can see where this product, how it works, donate. So if I put the position top 100, you can see it has come down of its position. So let me put minus 100, you will see to go to the top of its position. So you can see it was like it's still using that relative position. It's not going outside this line, this horizontal line. It's still there. You get that is relative to its position. So I'm trying to push an item out of out of its position. I'm trying to push it out of its position. I mean, you put it in another position, but using relative to its own position. So that is when we use relative. So you're actually considering that item itself. It has. It has. So we get. So automatically it has been pushed relative to its position, but top aspect. So you can push it to the left, push it to the right, but I don't really fancy pushing relative positioning. I don't really fancy it. But if you want to do it, you can. You are free to sell. So let's continue. So we have succeeded in talking about relative. Let's go to the next one. Position fixed. Let's come to this place. For us to explain, you can see that position fixed. Now, this aspect is still here. Are you getting me? You say position fixed, but it is still what? It sorry, we use position relative for for this product. This one I'm highlighting now. Product, how it works, and donate. So whenever I scroll, you can see that it's not there. It's scrolling with the nav bar that we have here, this big nav bar. So let's use position fixed. Position fixed. Watch what will happen. Let me remove this and put. Let me remove this from here. So watch. Are you seeing? It is on this point. It is not leaving this point. Are we seeing that? Product, how it works. It is just fixed to that point. So whenever you want to make something stay on a position forever on your site, what will you use? Position fix. So position fix stop the work for you. So you can see this down part here. The div element has, okay, let me increase my, sorry, let me increase my, so we can see the position fix and relative. So fix keep the item on that position without changing it. So that is why we say you can look at this down part. It is there forever without change. Gene location. And then the next one we are going to be talking about is what? Absolute. Absolute. An element with position absolute is position relative to the nearest position ancestors. I love that word. Ancestors. What does it mean by ancestors? The parents. So what does it mean by ancestors? It means the parents. The parents. Now, when I mean the parents now let me go to a diagram. Okay, let's continue. I'm trying to find something. So now, if we have this, let's say for instance, I have a child component at the bottom left. I can still take this child component to the bottom right of this content. That is where position absolute comes to play. But position absolute works with the parent that is relative to it. Okay, that the ancestor. Let me use that word, the ancestor. So now, let's take for instance, before I do anything position absolute, I must give the parent component a relative. Why do I give the parent component a relative? I'm trying to say I want to arrange this content anywhere inside of this parent component. Just like you have a room now, and you want to put your books where you want it to be. Nobody would question you. Why are you putting your books here? Why are you putting your books here? Why not put your books here? Why not put your books here? Nobody will question you. Nobody will harass you on that because it's your own room. Same as the parent component. The parent component can decide wherever the child component should be using position relative, and for the child component using position absolute. So the parent component must be position relative. If not, if you go and put the overall parent position up like your body of your HTML element, now you go and give it position absolute relative, wherever you put the position absolute of the container that you want to position, it will be taking the one you use, the body, regardless of wherever it is, maybe inside a parent before you get it. So it's always advisable that the direct parents should always be the one carrying the position relative, while the children will be carrying the position absolute if they want to be positioned somewhere in that space. That is when you use that. So let's give an example with the code we have written. So this is what we have. Let's change it to position absolute. So let me give this one position relative. No. Let me give this one that is the parent, the overall parent, position relative. So now instead of, so I gave this full red background position absolute. Then I gave this one position sorry, I gave this overall red background position relative, which is the parent, which is a great grandparent actually, because this container that is here. Okay, let's start with our container that we know first. Let's not jump. Let's just go with what we have. So I will give this blue one. So now let me remove this and just put. So watch what will happen. So you can see that it's trying to position it inside the container, and the container is too small. So that was why I extended relative to this one. So you understand the check. So we use relative on this container that is here. And now the positioning of this product, how it works to it, is not working properly, it's not visible. So the always advice is always advisable you give the one that can accommodate all for you. So let me give this, let me remove this here, and let me give it to this red background relative. So you can see, let's go and see it again. You can see where it is now. I gave it position relative for the parent background. And then I came and give position absolute and said I want it to be 5 pixel from the top. From the top, you can see it here. So let me take it to the left, to the right. Actually, let's take it to the right. Let's see. Right. 10 pixel. So watch what will happen. It's you can see it has gone to the right. But this was not its actual position, but it has gone to the right because of what? And it is using the relative now is on this big red background. So it's not actually checking for much, it's just sending you directly to the screen where you have to see your positioning. So that is that for now. Let's go to the next one. So let's go to the next one. So after position absolute, I think the next one is sticky. Sticky. Now, sticky means you want something to stick to a particular positioning, not like you're keeping it in bondage like fixed is doing. Fixed automatically hold it in bondage, so you can't actually tweak it or change it to this position or anything. You get so sticky now. On the other hand, wants to look like fixed, but it's not the same. So let's just read and see. So it says an element with position sticky is positioned based on the user's scroll positioning. Now let's see this scroll position. You can see now the content is not at the top, but we made it stick to the top. So whenever we scroll, it will now stick to the top. So let's see. Let's just use this. Let's just put here sticky, and put okay, let's just leave it like this and see. So whenever you scroll, you can see if we scroll to the top and it gets to five position, it will leave that particular content. Let's just move this. So let's see. Uh, so let's use it here. Okay, you can see when I put positions sticky, it can still screw, just like they say, you can still screw, but it works with the screw. So whenever you get to that position of the screw, it will stay on the screen. So if you look at it now, it has screwed. Once it got to 5 pixel, it stays in that location forever. That is what it means by sticky. So congratulations, guys. We have succeeded in doing at the beginning aspect in CSS. So let's go into internal CSS and external CSS. So with that, we can push to if there is time, you do something. So, but please put in mind from next week, from next weekend, we might be getting uh, assessments, and also put in mind there will be December break for us. There might not be class that period, so you guys just go and we'll give you guys assessments that will keep you guys during the weekend practicing. Don't look at the enjoyment of this season or look at what it has to give birth to you if you spend some time, quality time in this season. It will look at the joy you will get in the coming year. So if you start now to plan and start putting things in place, when you get to next year, you will not be stranded. So let's go into internal CSS. I will explain internal CSS then. When we go for break and come back, we'll continue with external CSS. Then I will explain universal selector. Then we'll do more of how to create different kind of navbar. I think that is what we'll call it a day. If there is still time, we'll do all this. If there is no time, we might end it somewhere. And next week, we'll continue from where we stop. Okay, I think you guys are following. So let's continue. So internal CSS, like I say, is between the header and the body. You put your tag. So whenever you put your tag between the header and the body, what comes into play? Now, before we go into internal CSS, or let's get to understand some selectors that we need. So let me explain the selectors we need. So we might not really go deep into the selectors, but we'll try and do something. Excuse me. So let's continue. Or let's go for a 10-minute break. Go for a 10-minute break, and when we come back, we'll continue. Since internal CSS is a new, fresh stuff, let's not rush it. We have a few minutes to our break. Let's go for a 10-minute break. When we come back, we'll continue. Don't forget, it's a 10-minute break. do an internal styling. So before we go into internal styling, I have to explain something for us, which is very, very important. So I hope we are still there in the class. I see. Okay, we still have some guys in the class. So let's go to let's go to selectors. So when it comes to our programming in terms of CSS and HTML, the best in terms of writing your CSS is external and internal sometimes or inline. Ah, I can't even remember last I wrote inline CSS. Like look weird somehow. It makes your code look dirty somehow. So, but we'll get to understand all this. So, but it's not a crime writing it. It's not a crime. But it is always good you play along as a senior developer. Even if you have not gotten to the level, you might not know, but when you play along as you know already that this is bad. Like if you keep on doing this, is bad. If you avoid it, you tend to put yourself in the shoes of a senior developer. Most time, not like most times, every time when growing in programming, there are some things that will look stressful, but it makes you unique. So one thing, the things that we need to know before going to into internal is selectors, CSS selectors. Now let's look at CSS selectors. The first, okay, CSS selectors are used to find, you get that word, to find or select the HTML elements and and the HTML elements you want to style. So we can divide CSS selector into 5 categories. Now, the first category is simple selectors. Select elements based on the name, ID, or class. So simple selectors. Now the next one is combinator selectors. So and this one talks about the select elements based on a specific relationship between them. So we are going to look at only those two. As time goes on, like I always say, we'll get to the remaining. We are not here to bombard you with everything. We want to see you doing the real stuff. So, which we believe from next class, you guys will be writing quality code because we have dwell more on learning the basic of CSS. Because our plans is to by next month, you guys will start writing JavaScript. That is our plans. But whichever way, the Christmas might extend that because we're going to be going for break, a Christmas break. So now let's continue. Let's continue. Oh, I'm sharing my work. Let me check. Okay, I think I'm sharing. So now, the first we're going to look at in terms of CSS element is using an element, a tag name. Let me use an element name. Let's say, for instance, I want to style all the divs. I want to style all the divs. So if I want to style all the divs, this is how I'm going to do it. And let's take for instance again, I want to style all the paragraph. This is how we are going to do it. You have to, but put in mind, using elements to style is not really good. Because if I style this particular div now, it will affect every div in this hour. project. Let's just look at it. Background color, let's use purple. Let's go to our work now. See. Background color. uh, Okay. I was afraid somehow. I was thinking it will not work like because this is how it's supposed to be. So you can see the background color has affected everything we are having. And this is not the best way to style. Imagine I want to style every div like this. This is not the proper way to style. You can see every div is being affected and it's not going to make the work look nice. So try to avoid elements selector styling. It's very, very critical. So if at all I use this now for paragraph, I use all the p tag now. I want them to have uh color. I want them to have color. So I want them to have color red. Let me just use red. So you can see all the paragraph. It's kind of having the color text of red. So that is not really advisable to use. So the only two I will advise you guys to use at all time, for me, I always dwell with one, but you can use any of them, is ID or class. You say ID or class. When I use or ID or class now, so ID or class makes our work look good and makes our work look neat. So that is the preferred pattern to use when talking about styling. So how do we come about ID or class? An ID is noted by a hash, a hash. So you can see it will go off now because I've indicated that that div is of ID. That div now is an ID. So the div now is an ID, and the ID will have to locate the element that is carrying that div, the word div. So, or you use a class which is dot. Is denoted by a dot. A class is denoted by what? A dot. So you can see a class is denoted by a dot. I think I added class here of div. That is okay. You can see the class div, class div. That is why it's reflected here. So class div. That was why it's reflected here. That is why we are seeing it like that. We get. So that is what we are trying to explain to you guys about class and about div, about ID. So, but the two different, you can use any of them, but they have similar similarities, which is to try to locate elements and give them the appropriate style. Or you can still use them in JavaScript. So, but the similarities is that for ID is unique. When I mean ID is unique now, if I give you an ID, just like your reg number in school, let me use if for those in university, we have what is called our reg number. That reg number is like your identity in that school. The school does not know you without your reg number. So your reg number is like your identity. Anywhere you go to in that school environment, and they ask you what is your reg number, you don't know it. It's kind of symbolized that you are not a student. So that is what it means. So it's good that you get that aspect that it's like an identity is unique to you. So the same as ID, ID is unique to us. So if I give a particular class, let me use the word class ID now. So I'm expected to use this div in one place. I don't really know how effect. Okay, I think it's before it's effective in CSS, but it's no longer really effective. But in JavaScript, it's 100% effective. So, but still use that same concept that whenever you give a div an ID signature, which is hash, it tries to tell you that you have to make sure that it is only used in one place. So ID div, you get, and this ID can only be one. You can't add two ID. It can only be one. You can't add two. But when it comes to class, when it comes to class, and I give you a class means I can still use this div everywhere. I can still use it wherever I still want to use it. And I can still add more to that line, to that class. So I've given this paragraph, dot, which is a class now. I can come here and expand it and just put P here. So you can see. So I can still add more classes. So that is what it means by ID and ID and what? Class. So now there is what we call universal selector. Now you can see that our code is not sitting where it has default padding and margin and box sizing to collapse that is not yet collapsed. So you can see that at this point we have space. So now a universal selector is always required in your project before you start to clear up browser styles, browser padding, browser default padding, browser default margin, and to make the browser start afresh like a new UI. So now, what are we going to do in terms of universal selector? The universal selector now is called asterisk. So that asterisk now, the most like now put this unique stuff always. Margin 0. I want to collapse every margin. Padding 0. Box sizing, border box. Watch. You can see that everything has collapsed. Before you can see that space everywhere. But now with the margin, padding, and box sizing, which are at this universal selector now means it's selecting everything that concerns this file. So automatically, it has reduced it to just what we are seeing here now. So we are succeeded in killing all the margin and all the padding that the system has. So now let's do something now. Let's move this star from here. It's not really sitting nice for me. Let me remove it from here and give it a class name. Class. So you can see. So we have removed all we did and put it inside a star. So you can see this is just looking nice now. Instead of that long code we have just now. You can see it's still working the same way. it should work. That is for that. So let's go to another thing. So I will not dwell much on the internal CSS. You can see we have understood it. Let's go to our external CSS. So we have to create a file for our CSS now. So for now, let's just create it here. Style dot CSS. So the extension name is .css. For HTML is .html. So now the first thing we have to do is our universal selector. Let's go and copy it. Let's just copy it rather than wasting our time. Let me cut it and put it here. So now, what will I do? The next thing I will do, I have to link my CSS with my HTML. That is where link tag comes into play. I will have to link it now inside the header. Inside the header, I just leave this for now. Trying to remember it. So now let's link it with our CSS. So I'll find the part of our CSS dot slash CSS style.css. So with this now, I've succeeded in getting our universal selector. It's not yet working. So so you can see it's working now. Make sure you put your relation style sheet. So you can see it's working now. You can see it's working. So now let's take this nav out of here. So you can see that our code is now looking nice. And let's put it here and let's see. It's still working. Let's refresh. It's still working. So now, likewise, all of them, you have to take all the star out. So, but we are not concerned about this. So I have to take this internal CSS out. So we are not using internal CSS again. So I'm putting in mind, you can see access everything here, like the border and all that. So the body, let me access our body and give our body a background color. Body, background color of purple. So you can see we have succeeded in giving this a background color of red. But it is inside its own file, not inside the what's it called? Not inside the HTML, but inside its own file. That's what we are talking about for styling. So we are succeeded in talking about internal CSS, external CSS, and inline CSS. So from now henceforth, we will be making more of making use of external CSS more. So that's what we are going to be making use of more. So let's just get prepared. So um, so let's just talk about nav bars, how to create different kind of nav bar. And I think that's where we'll stop in our class, depending on where we'll stop in today's. So let's just go into that. Let me remove most of the style I'm seeing here. I don't really like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. So let's remove all the internal inline CSS. It's not really advisable for me. So I'm trying to remove all the internals and inline CSS. So what do we want to do? Let me open the file for us to see. Okay, before we go into that, we have single column nav bar. We have double column nav bar, triple column nav bar, and so on. But depending on what you want to do, all of them has their own role to play in design. Depending on what you are being told to do, or depending on the UI that is being given to you. So how are we going to be sure that this is what we want to do? Is by looking at the UI. So now let's see a UI and see most times is double columnar barres almost everywhere, most times. So let's just look at what we have and just bring out something that will look best for us. Excuse me. So let me open a Figma design that we're going to be using. This is where we started from. So let's just do only the nav bar. Think in our next class, we'll have to do more of this. So we have a double column nav bar, a double column nav bar. Now, what are we going to do when we have a double column nav bar? And you can see it's slanted horizontally. It's not slanted vertically. Now, the first thing that will always come into your mind in development, first and foremost, structure. Succeeded in getting your structure the perfect way. The next thing to we'll go into is what? Writing your files. Sorry, before you structure, you must have written your files. So uh, 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 after you are done with structure and writing your files, then the next thing we are supposed to focus on is giving using the right style for it. So now we have two column navbar and it's slanted horizontally. How are we going to come about this? How do you want to do this? So we might just take only this one for today. Then in our next class, we will take more of how to style the, the navbar. Then probably we might talk about a hero section before we go into the next. So now let's try to style this nav bar. This is it already. So let's try to style it. So whenever we want to style, what is the first thing? So remember we are using external uh style sheets. So the first thing that will come into our mind, let's go to external style sheet. Let's see. You can see what is here. It's white background. So we have to switch this to white. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have to switch this to white. So now the next thing is to remove the margin and the margin itself. So that it will stay at the top. So you can see, let's look for okay, 5. We don't need this. Let's stick at the top. We don't need this stick. We don't need the wrap. We don't need the gap. So now we don't need it. So display flex. So flex is the first thing to display the item flex wise. So they should be on a horizontal line. The next thing we're going to do, align item center, then put in mind justify content, space between, so that the other half can go to the end of the other line. So space between, you can see space between. So you can see I am styling inside my external style sheet and it's working. So the next thing we're going to reduce is this. We don't need this whole long stuff. So we might not need height. I don't really for my nav bars, I don't really like using height. I'll prefer to use padding or whichever way. This is okay for now. So now let me increase this to 12. So the next thing that will come to our mind, you can see for the first one, which is Callisto's time is arranged. For the second one, products, how it works, donate is not properly arranged. So I will come to my file again and locate where that one is. You can see it's between this and this. So I'll come here and I will name it class subnav. So subnav, now that I've named it, you can choose any name of your choice. Then I'll come here and also make them horizontal and be in line with what we have. So what will I do is display flex, which will always make it go in. You can see how it is one top, one down. So I'll give this flex. You can see it has automatically be in a horizontal line, all of them. Then I will give it align item center. So nothing can move from that point. It is like that. Then gap. You need to create gap between the login state and the normal content. I will use 25 pixel. So you can see there is no gap between here and here. So I'll just use 55. So you can see there's more space now. So the next thing I will do now is just begin to do this. So currently we have gotten our two column nav bar. Our two column nav bar is done. And you can see the major code we wrote here in our two column nav bar is flex. So it would be advisable you go back home and you, you go back to your work and look at it very well. After this class, you have to look at what we have very well and let's see how it goes. So this is a two column nav bar. You can see how it is. So whichever way you can still make three column nav bar, but we might not go into that now. This is where we are going to stop for today's class. Thank you guys for your cooperation. In our next class, we'll talk about how to design different kind of nav bar. And we'll go into our hero section. And I think that one will be done for next class. So if you have any question to ask, you can ask. You have 5 minutes to ask that. Five any question at all, you can ask. You have 5 minutes for that. So if there are no questions, think we have to come to a conclusion for today's class. So thank you guys.